Hello. Today I want to talk about how we've built legit security agents that actually work. And I want to walk through a real live example of how JIT's three layers work together: the ingestion, correlation, and action layer, and why this architecture is required to build a product security agent that actually works. And everything I'll show maps back to these three layers. Let's start with the ingestion. Product security data isn't just large, it's structurally incompatible. Code, cloud, CI/CD, scanners, and internal systems all expose different schemes, update semantics, and ownership models. So ingestion is about continuously extracting, versioning, normalizing, and then reconciling state across these systems. The examples that I'll show, code, applications, and cloud, are just that, examples. They will illustrate the model and not the boundaries of the system. So keep that in mind. Let's start with code. On the code side, we don't stop at repositories or findings. We parse repositories to extract executable structure, endpoints, services, dependencies, control paths, and then we model them as first-class entities. So the goal here is not just to understand the code as text, is to understand the code as a behavior, and then the agent could use that to better understand security findings. Application is probably the most interesting example. Application context rarely lives in clean systems of records. It lives in places like websites, Confluent pages, or any internal docs. It's always unstructured, very incomplete. And we need to ingest that data, run entity extraction, and turn it into a structured application graph. So an agent can take a Confluent space and infer the application ownership and criticality. And it's not just Confluence is special, right? It's true for any organization knowledge base whatsoever. And on the cloud side, we ingest infrastructure state. We need to normalize the resources. We need to map runtime assets back to the application and to the code. So all of these ingestions require special handling, and they're all continuous. The change rate matters as much as the data volume. You have to stay up to date. Once we have completed the ingestion, we move to correlation. This is where the raw data becomes security context. So correlation is not joining tables. It's constructing a coherent security model from incomplete and sometimes very contradictory signals. We normalize all the ingested data into a unified domain model and materialize it into a company knowledge graph. So the nodes in this graph represent code, cloud resources, application, teams, findings, policies, and the list goes on. And the edges represent semantic relationships, many of which must be inferred. We need to use deterministic logic, heuristics, and also, a lot of cases, LLM-based inference, where semantic understanding is required to understand these edges. This is what allows a single vulnerability to be correlated to the application it affects, the environment it runs on, the owning team, and the business context that determines whether it actually matters or not. So without this layer, the agent guesses, but with this layer, the agents reason. And the third layer is action. Product security workflows are multi-step, data-heavy, and constrained by domain-specific rules. So we built a security-native agent execution layer. Our intent is decomposed into structured workflows. Agents operate directly on the graph, issue graph queries, and invoke domain-specific tools. Large databases never pass through the LLM. The LLM orchestrates, but the graph and the tools do the work. To make this reliable at scale, every action is constrained. Outputs are grounded to the graph entities. They are evaluated online and verified with domain-specific checks. And this prevents hallucinations and conclusions or any unsafe automation. So ingestion gives you the normalized view of the reality. The correlation turns that into understanding, and the actions apply that understanding safely. And all of that put together is exactly what it takes to build a product security agent that actually works. Thank you very much.